Michael, what was the craziest experience you had? Because I know your father did 40 years in prison. For several of those years, at least the first 20, I was very involved in trying to get him out of prison. And they said, what was the craziest thing that happened to you during that experience? It might have been the craziest thing that happened to me while I was on the street. And so I want to relay it. I'll never forget it. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give God all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving for that. Yes, people, I'm very blessed. Throughout all of the heartache, all of the challenges, all of the ups and downs, I consider myself to be very blessed to be alive and free, because it could have worked out a lot differently for me. And quick reminder, Chaz Palminteri and I, we've created a new platform called The Wise, which is Chaz, and The Wiseguy, which I guess is me. I'm not a wise guy anymore, but I guess I still am in some ways. But please go to the platform, subscribe for us. You know, we'd like you to do that. It encourages us, lets us know that you're interested in the content that we're providing. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be an encouragement. It's going to be entertaining for all of you. I think there's a link somewhere within where you can jump on and subscribe and join us. We're also going to be on audio podcasts also. So it's not only YouTube. We're going to be available for you to hear, whether you're in your car, on YouTube, whatever way you choose. But that's it, The Wise and The Wiseguy. You know, I love Chaz, you know, him, his family, just great people. And we're doing a lot of things together. So it's just a great relationship. And June 24th, Lorraine Theater in Ohio. Please don't forget, tickets are going fast. You can jump on their website and get them. And of course, July 22nd at the James L. Knight Theater in Miami. You know, it's attached to the Hyatt Hotel. Me and Mike Tyson appearing, possibly Chaz Palminteri with us also. It's going to be a great night, great lineup. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. Tickets will go fast, so jump on there and get them now. You know, I was recently asked again, and I try to respond to what people are asking me, what you want to hear. Michael, what was the craziest experience you had? Because I know your father did 40 years in prison. For several of those years, at least the first 20, I was very involved in trying to get him out of prison. And they said, what was the craziest thing that happened to you during that experience? It might have been the craziest thing that happened to me while I was on the street. And so I want to relay it. I'll never forget it. And it was just crazy. You never know how you're going to meet people in this world. You know, is networking important to you? I always try to, you know, remember the people that I meet, because you never know, you know, someday you know, they can come in handy, you can be useful to one another in a certain way. But I'm always surprised in how I meet people. Today, I was on a conversation, a pastor that I know up in Vancouver, Canada, contacted me, and he was recently in Europe, and I was told I have a lot of fans there. And a big base from Sweden contacted me and wants me to come to Sweden to do several events there. So we had a great, you know, call this morning. Just wonderful people, enjoyed hearing them. And we're planning something for February of next year. So if you're in Norway, Sweden, or Denmark, I think I'm going to be coming to your neighborhood. So watch out for that. I'm sure you hear a lot about it, but I'm looking forward to it. I've been to several places in Europe and the world, but never to Norway, Sweden, or Denmark, the Scandinavian area. So I'm looking forward to that. But again, you know, because I know a pastor, he recommended me, people knew me in another place. Networking is amazing. So let me tell you a networking experience that I had. I was 20 years old. I was out in Suffolk County, Long Island, which is, you know, out east. And I had a little place out there called Sonny's Pizza. I was in the pizza business way back then. I had taken over a place from somebody, and I named it after my dad. I love my dad, right? And I'm sitting in a bar next door to the pizza place, and I'm sitting with a couple of guys. I didn't really know them. One of the guys had seen him, you know, once or twice before he came into the bar, and I didn't drink at that time, but I was sitting, we were just talking back and forth. And all of a sudden, the guy starts talking, and he tells me, yeah, you got to see this girlfriend I got, man. She's a tough woman, and starts talking like that. And I said, well, what do you mean, tough? And he said, well, she was involved with gangsters. And I said, really? Yeah. And he didn't know who I was, by the way. So I said, what kind of gangsters? He said, well, there was this big bank robbery case and some mob guy got convicted of it. And, her husband was one of the witnesses against the mob guy and she was there. And, he starts talking like that. This is sounding very familiar. My father was convicted of masterminding a nationwide string of bank robberies. So I said to him, well, what was the guy's name, the mob guy? And he goes, I think it was Sonny Franzese. He didn't even know how to pronounce the name. Something like that. He said Sonny. So I said, wow, okay. So I'm listening, right? Coincidence, strict coincidence. And when we finished the conversation, I said, can I talk to you for a minute? And I brought him in the back of the, in a room in the back. And I said, listen, I got to meet this woman. I said, what's her name? He said, Rusty, they called her. I said, well, I got to meet her. Because her real name was Eleanor Cordero. And her husband, John Cordero, was the major witness against my father. Drug addict, junkie, bank robber, the whole bit. So he says, oh, no, you don't understand. This woman, she'll kill me. If anything, and she knows that I was talking, she's going to kill me. And I'll be honest with you, I was carrying at that point in time, and I took out a piece, and I said, well, it's either her or me. I said, this woman is critical to me. My father's doing 50 years for a crime he didn't commit, and her husband was the major witness. I need to speak to her because she knows the truth that went down. So I scared him too. And I said, and all I want is the truth out of her. So he said, okay, I'll set it up. And then he had another friend, and we all got together, and he said, okay, I'll set it up. So he comes back to me in a day or so, and he says, look, he says, she'll agree to meet you, but she's going to meet you late at night in a diner or behind a diner. She'll be in her car, and she wants you and you alone, nobody else to come at that point. I said, okay. So I immediately go tell the lawyer. I said, listen, I'm meeting with Eleanor Cordero. Now, let me tell you about this woman. My father had been tried for murder. If you look up the case, Ernie the Hawk Rapolo was a guy, his body came up in the Jamaica Bay, tied with cinder blocks and all of that, regular mob-style hit. And my father was tried for his murder. He was acquitted in the case. He was acquitted. But she, Eleanor, was originally married to Ernie the Hawk Rapolo. Now, after he dies, she marries John Cordero, who's a junkie and all this kind of stuff. Good choice of husband she picks. So anyway, she'll meet you alone. Don't come with anybody else. Great. So I go tell the lawyer. He says, you got to wire yourself up. So he's actually, the day I was meeting her, he's wiring me up, putting a tape on me. And as we were doing it, I just got a bad feeling. I said, you know what? I don't want you to do that. Let me meet her the first time. Let me see what this is all about. I don't want to put a wire on me. Okay. So it's all set up. We go, it's midnight or close to midnight. It was late at night. And I drive to the place, and she's in the back of the diner in a Mustang, right? I get out of my car. I was alone. I walk into her car. I sit down. She immediately pulls out a gun, puts it in my crotch in that area, and says, if you're wired, I'm going to blow your brains out, and something else along with it, just like that. I said, Eleanor, I'm not wired. She pats me down. She does the whole bit. I said, not wired. All I want is the truth out of you. I want to have a discussion with you. So she sits there, right, straight up, and she said, your father was framed. My husband was the principal witness, and I can get your father out of prison. I said, okay, Eleanor, that's all I want. I don't want you to lie. I want you to tell the truth. I knew exactly what to say at that point, even at 20 years old. And this started a 7-month relationship. When I mean relationship, is I basically had to babysit for her, because she told me that night, she says, listen, if my husband finds out about this, he'll kill me. And if the FBI knows that I'm helping you, they'll hurt me. I'll be in trouble on both ends. So you got to be responsible for my protection and my welfare. I said, no problem. Now, let me tell you the backstory on this. Her husband, John Cordero, and her got into an argument at one point. This was prior to this. And she has said, I'm going to blow the whistle on you. I'm going to tell everybody that you framed Franzese and all of that. Well, they were allegedly in an apartment when this happened, and he got so angry with her. This is not this is a maniac, that he took an axe and he started hitting her with an axe. An axe. Now, it might have been this. I don't know what kind of axe it was, But anyway, to the point where he gave her 2,000 stitches. And when you saw her, she had cuts here, she had cuts across her face, this and that and that. While he was hitting her with the axe, according to her, and this was documented afterwards, we saw in police reports that this actually happened, he was having sex with her, and he was putting tranquilizers in her throat to clot the blood so she wouldn't die. This is the kind of maniac. Now, my father would never, ever be involved with somebody like this because, first of all, he hated junkies. He preached against drugs to me from the time I was a kid, hated anything to do with drugs. He would never be involved with somebody like this. But this is the type of woman. He had told her during this encounter that he was going someplace to sharpen the axe. He was going to come back and chop her up in little pieces. While he went out, wherever he went to do that, she dragged herself to a phone, called 911, and the cops got there, and they arrested him. They let him go because the feds jumped in and got him released. He was never charged with that crime. That's how the feds work when they're protecting somebody. And she survived. But 2,000 stitches, you can see it, right? So I have to protect her. So I rent a house. I got her there. I had to go see her every day. I'm bringing her food. At the same time, I bring her to Newsday, a guy by the name of Manny Topol, who was the reporter. And I tell Manny, this is what I got. A lot of people knew that the case against my father wasn't right, that he wouldn't be involved in bank robberies, right? And it came out later on. A lot of people believed that he was framed at the time. So I said, Manny, this is who I got. He got very interested in the story, but he said, Michael, before I do anything, we got to take her and have a lie detector test. I said, hey, go ahead. Takes her, has a lie detector test, she passes. Everything that she said about my father being framed. And remember, she drove the getaway car. She had a little daughter. Her daughter was in the back seat. That's how these guys were. The daughter was in the back seat of the car while they were robbing the bank. She was the getaway driver. So she knew everything. And she passed the lie detector test. Newsday does a whole story on her. Manny Topol, he's passed on now. But you can look it up. I mean, it's in Newsday. Eleanor Cordero, the whole thing about my dad. I think it was front page, if I'm not mistaken. I'm almost positive. There might have been one or two articles. We take her into court. She swears. We get an affidavit. We got turned down every single time. The judge there was no way they were going to let my father out of jail, no matter what. Forget what the excuse was. We got turned down so many times, even with her. But during this time and watching her and all of this, I'll be honest with you, she made me a nervous wreck. She was a crazy woman. She wanted to get into a relationship with me and all that. And I wouldn't do it. I said, Eleanor, we can't do that. I said, because then it's going to come out on the stand that you had a relationship with me. I didn't want to, demean her or insult her in any way, but there's no way in the world. I remember once going to visit my father. He said, how's it going? I said, Dad, I said, not even you are worth me getting into a relationship with her as much as I love you. He laughed, But it was that kind of a horrible woman. Just be honest with you, horrible. And I remember one time, I'll never forget, we were in the house that I rented for her, and I'm watching the Super Bowl. This is how much time I had to spend with her, between then and the time we were going to court. I'm watching the Super Bowl. I'm sitting on a chair. She comes out in kind of like a negligee, nightgown, or whatever she had on. And I pay no attention to her. And I'm sitting in the chair, and all of a sudden she comes behind me, grabs my hair as a knife to my throat, and says, if you're screwing me in any way, if you're not being honest with me, I'm going to cut your throat. And I said, Eleanor, I promise everything is above board. What are you talking about? You see how well we've been taking care of you? She pulls the knife away, and I jumped off that chair. I wanted to strangle her. I'll be honest with you. I caught myself. Like that was it for me. Another time, her little daughter was with her, and her daughter asked me to go and take her for coffee. I think she was 12 years old, to take her for coffee. And we come back in the house, and she takes a crystal ashtray and hurls it at my head. Where were you with my daughter? That crazy woman. And it missed me. It would have knocked me out if it hit me in the head. But this is the kind of abuse I had to take from her just to try to, get her to go to court and do the right thing. And eventually, like I said, we got turned down. But that was, one of the craziest experiences I ever had. And, I can get into it more, but she used to call me 5 times a day. She needed this, she needed that. It was tough, and I'm 20 years old and trying to go through this with that one. But again, You know, these trials and tribulations in life, they're valuable later on, because if you can deal with something like that, you can deal with a lot of different situations. And it certainly prepared me, because within a year or two of that, I was proposed and became a recruit in that life, and had already gone through, you know, a lot of stuff. So just thought I'd let you know, people ask me about it. Somebody asked me specifically what was the craziest thing that happened, you know, while you were on the street and trying to help your father, because I did try to help him a lot, man. You know, we had three different attorneys, and, you know, raising money to pay the attorneys, and, you know, going to the court. We went up to Supreme Court on constitutional issues, certiorari issues in my dad's case. So for the first 20 years or so, I was very active in trying to help him out, and he kept coming out on parole during that time. He did 10 years, came out on parole, got violated, went back for a couple. He kept getting violated for association. So it was a crazy time, but listen, you know, when your family is down, you do what you got to do to try to help them. So that's it. Thought it was an interesting story. I hope I answered your question. And I got a lot more things as they come into my head that we can talk about. But that's it for today. So how do I always leave you? Same way. Be safe. Please be safe. You know, again, I hate to open up the paper today online and see what's going on. It's crazy stuff. New York, California. California yesterday saw 10 people beating up some young guy. Just crazy stuff right out on the street. Be healthy. Take care of yourself. Very, very important. And yes, when I say this, I mean this. God bless every single one of you, your families. And thank you so much, you know, for enjoying the content. Please subscribe to Wise and the Wise Guy, and continue to support me. We appreciate it very much. Yes, I'll see you next time.